Dude, what just happened? Emu is practically confirmed to be a devil, the giant warrior pirates are being transformed into an army of giant demon creatures, and Emu can just forcibly control anyone? Plus, they might be using a Necronomicon? Alright, so chapter 1150 is out, and straight up, I was not ready for this arc to have this straight up 180, and I am all here for it. Things are really getting exciting. I gotta say, I really wish I was home right now because this chapter rips. I mean, Elbaf has been a little bit slow outside of its insanely big lore reveals, but not anymore it seems. So that means that you and I have a ton to talk about today, starting with Emu's true powers, and then we can talk about what this army actually means, how it could even be defeated to begin with, does Luffy even have a chance to defeat this, and what it will all mean for both the Elbaf arc and the story at large. And right off the bat, let's start with covering the four new different powers that Emu shows off in this chapter, because it really explains everything about the Gorosei and the Holy Knights. Now, first off, it seems that Emu is truly just going full-on classic cartoon devil, because they can make devil contracts. Basically, by summoning a pentagram from their hand, they're able to smother their targets in darkness, then transforming them into much larger and fiercer version of themselves, being straight up demons. And don't worry, we are going to talk about why I think not everyone and their mom is a demon at this point too in just a moment. But first off, this devil contract. At least to me, it clearly is what the Gorosei's full power forms draw their power from as well. I mean, the pentagram spell casting, the giant demonic transformations, and the complete lack of devil fruit confirmation altogether kind of seem to point towards this contract being where their powers originate from as well. Now, this also could explain why Saturn's life force seems to just vanish once Emu sucks the power out of him. It's kind of playing on the classic media trope of the devil, Satan, stealing souls when the contract is broken. You know, pretty much the entire deal with the devil thing. But instead of golden fiddles or immense wealth being up for grabs here, Emu is truly going full anime and giving characters these massive, badass looking demon forms. And with that being said, don't look into it too much if in the next couple of weeks I appear on screen, you know, having grown to up to 7 feet tall, grown some horns, and spit some fire. I just started new medication, and it definitely has nothing to do with Emu. Now, the next power I want to touch on is most likely, if not straight up definitely, the same thing, but this time applied to Gunko. Because by being possessed by Emu, Gunko has now grown way larger, has a classic devil tail, and bat wings. Plus, she gets this really sick looking trident like an evil Aquaman, or you know, the devil. I mean, seeing her like this kind of reminds me a bunch of my buddy's Archer's theory that Emu's true form is probably that of a straight up classic slapstick devil, as it would kind of nicely complete and complement the cartoonish aesthetic of Gear 5th. And yeah, 100% man, I think he called this shot way in advance. So props to you, my fellow Oharian, you crushed it, because that is exactly what Gunko looks like right here. Now, technically that doesn't confirm that Emu themselves officially looks like this as well, but it is definitely a start and points in that direction, and a big one at that, because I think it's highly likely that this hints towards Emu's true face due to the fact that Gunko is possessed by them. Because let's be real, I hope you also assume that she would just take on these traits now specifically because, well, Emu's in the driver's seat, not because she would normally take on this demon form, right? And seeing that long hair also, Emu is a woman's stock going up? I don't see any other reason why Gunko's hair would suddenly grow and become so luscious. And do you want to know what shampoo she uses? Even more reason I think that Emu can only possess women potentially, but I may be wrong about this and wanted to leave that door open at least slightly. But now that we are talking about Emu possessing people, the last new power is Domi Reversi. And that's the ability that Emu uses to command the demon army that they create. Now, I do want to point out here that until Domi Reversi is being used, the giants seem to retain control over themselves, and you know, we're just cheering about their immense power. But Domi Reversi, which translates to dark reversal control, is, in my opinion at least, the most fearsome power at play here, and I do believe it's also the one that has a major weakness, which I'll be getting into shortly. Since, let's be honest here, if this thing doesn't have at least one big glaring flaw or, you know, some sort of nerf, a bunch of insane plot holes just open up like this, because as is right now, Jesus, Emu is seriously broken. And now we get to talk about the most mysterious thing from this chapter, which is what the book here? Like, holy cow, like this thing looks insanely cool. I want a book that lets me manifest guns. Huh? No, that was not on my bucket list. Now, Emu is busting out some American-style justice on the giants of Elbaf, it seems, as they manifest a double-barreled shotgun and blast off Broggy's wrist. Again, not on my... If you had this on your bingo card for Elbaf, then, you know, you should definitely, you know, run the lottery sometime. I mean, seriously, I think this book here is crazy important. I kind of wonder, is the entire book the Abyss? Like, does Emu use the book to conjure these dark powers? Almost like the Necronomicon or the Darkhold from Marvel, you know? And in case you aren't aware, the Necronomicon, which I mentioned before, is basically just a fancy Latin way of saying Book of the Dead. It's a book that originates from the stories of H.P. Lovecraft. You know, a notorious cosmic horror writer that created characters like Cthulhu and, you know, his old god friends. And all of this isn't some weird ramble from my end either, as Lovecraft seems to be a very big inspiration for Oda for writing Emu's power source, which is the Abyss. Because due to its weird cosmic dark nature, it does seem to draw its name from the short story The Abyss by one of Lovecraft's contemporaries, as it took a ton of inspiration from the Lovecraft mythos. And I'll even go one step further here and promise the idea that all of Emu's powers might just be tied to this book, particularly because Emu doesn't transform the giants and take control over them until they suddenly pull it out. And Gunko transforms due to Emu taking control from Maurizua, where this book was probably sitting before they summoned it to Elbaf. And so I feel pretty confident, at least right now, to say that I believe that this book straight up is the source of the Abyss. But let's have a little bit of fun with it, shall we? What do you think? Because I've got yet another bombshell idea that I want to toss out, and hey, if you don't like it, kind of feel free to toss it right back at me, because I believe that this book is also the national treasure of Maurizua that Doflamingo was talking about way back here during Dressrosa. And not only that, I do think I know its drawback, because I think that this book steals the user's lifespan. That's why Doflamingo wanted the immortality surgery, so that he could basically loophole it. I mean, I'll dive into this a little bit more in depth though. For now, first, I want to also suggest that this book is the true foil to Nika. Not Emu, not potentially Blackbeard or anyone else, but that it is what shrouded the first world in death and darkness. Now, with that being said, I do wonder if Emu can conjure things from the book the same way that Luffy draws things from his imagination, because it kind of seems like that based on the appearance of the dagger and the shotgun. But I do wonder if they're also limited by what's inside those pages. And come on, I mean, wouldn't it be something else if the One Piece was actually just like a super important, critically missing page from this book that Nika or Joy Boy stole in the past, and it's low-key the craziest, most destructive thing ever that Emu can't summon now or can't use because, well, that one piece of the book is missing. Make it the one piece of the book capable of ending the world, maybe? Just letting my theory juices flow here into you for a little bit. But yeah, maybe that was crude phrasing, but you kind of get the idea here, right? Now, there's also a pretty fair chance that I'm just a little bit off the mark and that the Abyss is in fact a location, not an ability, that Emu can straight up draw things from, including this book, like a pocket dimension. But seeing as Gunko Emu was literally casting spells with this thing, I kind of feel like the book must be pretty damn important. All right, okay, but enough about book piece for now. Let's move on to, you know, something else fun. The demon army that Emu has literally just created from nothing. I mean, God, these things look sick. Dory and Broggy look absolutely rad, and I'd be of course remiss if I didn't talk about the absolutely godly goat of foreshadowing that I saw some people point out online. I'm not gonna take credit for this, I just saw it floating around. But check out this cover page, and that matches up for the chapter 633, Friend or Foe. There they are, Dory and Broggy, two friends that eventually have become Luffy's foes. I gotta say, pretty nice one, Oda. I'm always so fascinated how long he actually planned some of this stuff in advance. All right, but I do want to fixate on the demons here more, because there is a ton of potential in the story for how they will actually be used here. For example, something that quickly came to mind when I saw Emu bust this move out is the mural, because it kind of made me wonder if the distinctly fearsome black creatures that we saw in the mural here, these three, are actually powerful demons that they created in order to defeat Nika and and Joy Boy. The dragon thing here and the Sun Holder, are they just like manifestations of the devil contract? Or maybe they're previous wielders of the book who used it and then transformed into forms like this, like the ultimate powerful transformation only the user itself can do? All I really know is that it seems like Luffy will have to defeat a giant powerful demon monster at some point, like maybe someone transformed with the devil contract, or even a, I don't know, reanimated legend who then gets infused with demon powers. And I'm just gonna throw a few names out there: Rox, Roger, or if Emu really wants to cut deep here, even someone like Ace, because I mean that would be a very gnarly plot twist, I admit, and would fit in with all of the very cool Thriller Bark comparisons showing up in these last few chapters. I mean, you know, the demonic style army, big, giant, scary bosses. I mean, just instead of Ors being reanimated and possessed, it's now the king of the pirates. And I think that would be pretty awesome. And it does kind of make you wonder if historically there were any other key players that had devil contracts with Emu, and that's why they were so powerful to begin with. I mean, I already mentioned Rox here being revived, but what if he already had made a deal with the devil Emu, and that's why he was so beyond dangerous? Only that, plot twist, instead of falling prey to them, Rox just had some special way to resist or counter Domi Reversi maybe. Or of course, another character that would make a ton of sense is Garling, especially because he used to be the supreme commander of the Holy Knights, and especially seeing as he was just so confident just waltzing into the Gorosei's room and was the next one appointed, his tie is probably way closer with Emu than many other people are, right? And Garling having a Hades transformation is coming, I think. I can literally feel it in my bones. You just wait for that one. Okay, but there's at least one other person I do want to propose for now, someone with a closer and even deeper tie to the current arc, because hear me out, what if Herald, the former king of Elbaf, was actually turned into a demon by Emu, and that's why Loki needed to kill him? Really think about this. We already know he had some ties to the Holy Knights, right? So it would make sense. In case you forgot, in chapter 1140, Summers asked Shamrock if he was paying respects and visiting Herald's grave, and since then, I've always thought that Herald was like giga extra sus. Now, I personally still think there's a good chance that he was just straight up planted as a Holy Knight who was supposed to take over Elbaf for Emu, and maybe Herald says no to Emu because he has a change of heart, and as a result, Emu punished him with Domi Reversi and his devil contract. But knowing that this could happen, he then gave Loki Ragnir, which had the power to defeat him, and that would be both epic and very tragic in multiple ways. But then goddammit, if that were to be true, that would mean that Jarul is actually not a terrible guy and might just be a good dude and was hiding all of this for the sake of order and stability. I mean, that could explain why Emu is leading the charge towards Jarul right now. I really wanted that man to be evil. Come on, that would have been fun. But I mean, apologies if we're wrong. You win some, you lose some. Maybe I'm still right, but that's kind of looking less and less likely at this point with this chapter. I thought he was manipulating the whole dang thing, and so yeah, that just kind of sucks. But I mean, I guess I'll start cheering for him if he's just straight up a good guy now. And anyways, all this demon stuff does open up a few other really crazy doors, of course, for the future of the story. I mean, who else will become a dark creature, and will they even need to be mind controlled? Like seriously, the world government's army could end up being insanely broken. Psycho demon marines as far as the eye can see, Buster calling anyone and anything, but honestly, they probably wouldn't even need that at this point. Not to mention that this would be the perfect way for the quote-unquote good marines like Sword to denounce the government once and for all. And let's get crazy here. We could see demon admirals like Green Bull or crazy powerful demonic vice admirals. I mean, some of which would be way cooler than others, I think we can agree. Let's be honest, Satanic Red King, I couldn't care less, but Dark Angel Smoker, that'd be pretty wicked. And of course, Scubbus Doll would be a total demon baddie that I think we all want to see, potentially rivaling even Boa and Robin for absolute dominant woman of the year. Well, I kind of want to see that. But the reason I really like this potential idea is because of how it could play out in the story, of course. Specifically, the idea of someone that we know that's very powerful deciding to turn on the government, and then in turn, Emu punishing them by hitting them with the demon power powers and full mind control. And two characters that I think would be perfect for this could be, and now hold your crackers, Kizaru or Akainu. Yeah, we're going there. I really think that there's potential, especially with all of the dragon stuff going on, for Oda to actually go and redeem Akainu right now. I mean, his energy and passion has been wavering a lot ever since he, was made into Fleet Admiral, and so I'm kind of hoping that it stays in that line, and Oda has been subtly hinting at him losing faith in the government. And this, of course, would be a very clever way for Akainu to still get a really big and cool redemption arc, and still end up kind of, losing and fighting Luffy. And it also kind of tracks more with Luffy's personal agenda. I mean, the dude hates the admirals, but if he saw them start to change for the better and then boom, they become dark princes of Imu with no control, well, I think that Luffy's desire for everyone to have freedom would actually supersede his hatred of Akainu. And in my opinion, this could actually be the perfect way to start some interesting Akainu redemption story shenanigans. I mean, maybe Luffy frees him from the devil contract and then he joins his side for the final war, could be sick, or it's just Akainu standing in the way of, Imu or one of the Gorosei, because they think this is kind of messed up what they're doing, and then they get punished, but at least they I don't know, saved Luffy for a moment there or something. But since Akainu doesn't deserve redemption, at least not yet, and he never might get to, I think there's another character who stands out even more for this. Because I hope you agree that with everything we got for him on Egghead Island, like the most unexpected and fun character arc we've seen in a long time, Kizaru would hit way harder at this point, considering his ties to Kuma, Vegapunk, etc. Plus, he already has a distinct relationship with the crew because of Sabaody and Egghead, and let's not forget that he's been implied to have already wavered and helped Luffy escape the Gorosei with all of that magical light speed food suddenly appearing and someone feeding Luffy. In case you don't know, it's basically confirmed by Oda that Kizaru was the one who fed Luffy. And I'll admit, I just want to see some sick yokai version of Kizaru use darkness and light speed to kick anyone's ass. Just give me that, please. And actually, I think it's even deeper than that, because with his light-based powers, he could actually become the living embodiment of straight up light versus dark. I mean, the symbolism would be, of course, off the charts, especially when you consider his just follow orders mentality, and he always does what he's told, and if he actually did deny the powers above him, only to be literally forced into doing it instead, that would be phenomenal writing, phenomenal symbolism, and I'm gonna challenge Oda because I think he can't resist that. And well, I just lied, I realized, because I thought of another super tragic demon marine that could be super fun, Kobe. Because if Imu turned Kobe into a devil and had him fight against Luffy, his idol, I think I might just cry. It would honestly be the single most brutal thing that Oda has ever done in the story. I mean, Luffy's first friend, the new hero of the Marines who was gonna change everything, becoming a hollow slave to Imu's darkness, and getting a fitting power boost to help him match Luffy's god level, that would break the internet and probably my heart, like, while we're at it. And speaking of friends though turning into foes, I do think this may have actually happened during the first and second worlds. Because I want you to imagine this. The idea of Imu turning anyone they want into demons makes me kind of wonder if something similar might have happened before to Nika and Joy Boy. Like, did they lose because some of their allies were straight up turned against them? Or maybe, just saying, did demons rebel against Imu to help Joy Boy or Nika and they were punished for breaking their contracts? I mean, this chapter might straight up explain Zunisha like completely. He was an ally of Joy Boy, we know that, who was then turned into an elephant and forced to wander the world for breaking his devil pact, maybe. Like, straight up, that's the punishment that he suffers for breaking his side of the bargain, but maybe Imu just has a soft spot for big old elephants and didn't want to kill him, but punished him to wander the ocean instead, which, now that I say it, may be worse. Than just killing him. I don't know. But for all that we know, there is a much more serious punishment for actually breaking a devil contract, something that Saturn recently found out, well, the hard and dry way. Now, the big thing that I've been busy wondering though is what happens to someone who's able to break free? Like, is that even possible, first off? Because it would seem likely to me, because Gunko, remember, has memories of Brook still, and knowing Oda, let's be real here, she'll at least break through a little bit so we can figure figure out what all of that's about and have at least a moment of heartwarming reunion. The question is, if she manages to do so, will she live or die? Would she be stuck in this cartoon devil form or lose all her powers and even her devil fruit maybe completely? And actually still after the last chapter, I'm kind of left having to ask myself if Gunko is even the same as Dorian Broggy, or is there something more special yet about her specifically? I mean, I guess we will find out if Emu decides to just use Dory or Broggy as a new vessel, but I would argue that that seems kind of unlikely because honestly, if I had the choice between Arrow Girl here or Giant Powerful Warrior, I don't know, I'd pick the big boy, I think. I wonder if Emu can only pilot or manually control people who made willing demon contracts with them, maybe? You can kind of see that I'm trying to really figure out what the downside or nerf of this power is. Speaking though of willing contracts, maybe you should pop over to the Ohara Patreon where you can make a pact with me, your favorite One Piece YouTuber, to get exclusive extra content from the channel. I actually just dropped an extended cut of my conversation with Arthur the other day. We get into a lot of detail about some of the craziest One Piece lore and theories and even some Japan stuff, and it's only available right here. Just a fair warning though, if you do decide to leave, you may or may not become a demon, but hey, that's cool in my books too, and hey, maybe you want some cool demon power. All right. The bills have been paid. I have put it off long enough. We need to talk about, does this thing have a weakness? Why is not everyone a demon? Why doesn't Emu just go and make Shanks a demon? There has to be either a limit or some way of cutting this ability off. If not, why the heck has Emu not been doing this the whole time to everyone? Because I get that there needs to be rising stakes in the plot of One Piece, right? But if there aren't any constraints or limits to this power, I straight up don't see how Emu would ever lose to anyone. I mean, if I were them, I'd be turning Yonko like Kaido or Shanks into my little demon boys ASAP and just be like, clean up everything, right? So there does need to be something, no, that prevents Emu from just snapping their fingers and turning half the population into their own hellspawn. Luckily though, I have got a few options here, so let's chat, and then you can tell me in the comments which one you think is the true secret to defeating Emu's dark powers. And I'll start with covering what we know about the devil contract, which is that the power of the demon seems to scale with the power of the person, kind of similar to once again, Moria's shadow power. I mean, this explains why some giants look like generic demons, Dory and Broggy look absolutely epic, and why the Gorosei are just totally different beasts altogether. Now, it may be that Emu would just struggle to maintain control over a stronger person. Maybe their hockey levels play a big part after all. I mean, the more refined and powerful their will is, the harder the demonic possession might just be to maintain, but clearly it's still possible. I mean, 2 of the giant warrior pirate captains were possessed pretty easily here, but maybe it won't be as dominant as with some of the others. But if that's not the case, the next most obvious solution could be Conqueror's Haki, our all-time favorite power, because maybe the shadowy mind control cannot rival the will of a king or conqueror specifically, and anyone who has that power can straight up resist it. That might be why the Yonko weren't available, since they all were absolutely advanced Conqueror Haki users. Heck, that might be why Emu can't target people around them either, because if an advanced Conqueror Haki uses their Haki around the possession, could the possession just break? I mean, this could line up very nicely with the reaction that Emu had to Joy Boy's immensely powerful Haki blast at the end of Egghead that actually sent all the Gorosei right back to Marijua and kind of broke the summoning, I guess. And that would also line up well with who is currently in this fight. All of the Conquerors on Elbaf are conveniently not there right now. Now, before doing this, Gunko knocked Gaban into the underworld where Luffy and Zoro are, plus it's all but confirmed that Loki will, come on, have Conqueror's Haki. If not, what is Oda even doing? And he has been down in the underworld too. I mean, maybe they'll be able to free anyone recently under the Domi Reversi using Conqueror's Haki, and I do feel pretty confident that that will be a big factor, but I do also think that there is another way that it might be able to break this thing, and it has to do with Brook and Gunko's history specifically. I think this could be why their relationship even exists in the story, because soul manipulation might be the real key to break the demon contract here. Think about it. If Emu is controlling their target souls, Brook's devil fruit could render that power completely useless. This power could also just have simple limits that haven't been revealed yet, like maybe it'll only be temporary because Emu needs to be in Pangaea castle to access it fully, or if the book is after all the true power source, maybe if it's stolen or, you know, closed or something, they might be able to undo anyone who was currently under control. Like, maybe Robin can steal this book and receive a truly fitting devil power fitting for her demon child nickname. And that could work really well, especially if Blackbeard ends up being the final villain, as Robin would gain a big endgame power boost too here. But that's actually beside the point, because I still need to cover the other ways that this broken power could potentially be countered. Another really big factor could be what Emu has been working on for years, which is of course the Mother Flame that Vegapunk just finished. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Emu needs the Forbidden Sun as a power source for everything. Maybe it is the Abyss, and since the Mother Flame does exist now and is with the government, it could be that Emu just very recently got access to this power once again, especially if the Forbidden Sun was sealed away somewhere. And since I've just shifted over to Sun talk, I do need to talk about another obvious weakness that could have the biggest implications for the future of the story, because I do feel that the Sun God bringing the dawn might have a double meaning. Obviously, it's supposed to be freeing the world from darkness and Emu's control, but what if it's quite literally the answer for how this will happen? The Nika fruit users like Joy Boy and Luffy may straight up have the power to bring light to those in darkness. You know what I'm talking about? The power to purge the devil's control would just totally line up with a sun god's powers, and also explain why the sun is Nika's symbol when their powers really have not that much to do with fire or light, at least so far, so it could just straight up be metaphorical. All I really know is that in the coming chapters we will probably get to see Scarpa Gaban fall into Luffy's group's lap and help reveal some secret way to defeat the Holy Knights and Emu. I mean, shocker, like many One Piece arcs, it will be up to Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji, who would have thought, to handle the mess, but now their greatest new ally, Loki, is also here to help, of course. And I also think that Ragnar the Hammer has some crazy extra powers that we still haven't seen, and if Elbaf is in need, I do think we can all agree that Loki will step up to the plate and show them that he is meant to be their king. And speaking of kings, the world might just end up having a new ruler soon anyways, because Emu seems to be getting somewhat antsy and has left the Holy Land somewhat unprotected, and a powerful warrior has just invaded Marijua, because Monkey D. Dragon, my man, has just made his move finally after 26 real years and is causing the first storm. A storm that accidentally might pave the way for the world's worst pirate to become king of the world instead. And if you want to know all about that and why my boy's finally in action, check out this video right here where I break it all down for you. The time for the revolution has come now, and it may have some very unforeseen consequences for Luffy. With that being said, thanks so much for watching. As you can see, my camera already died, and thanks so much to all the fantastic Patreon people over there. We have a weekly newsletter you can get on Patreon for free, and just, yeah. Otherwise, you can have your name at the end of the credits if you join instead. So yeah, that's a perk. Bye-bye.